The following is a clip from a live episode of NYY Recaps. Enjoy. Let's talk about the trade deadline, because the general consensus that I've seen is that, people are disappointment, or they're calling it a fail and saying Brian Cashman did nothing. And I'd like to remind them about the guy who's hit 2 home runs in consecutive games, Jazz Chisholm, after a 2-home-run game last night, 2 more tonight. He was quick to remind these guys, hey, it's not like we did nothing. I think that he's looked great at third base. He made a couple of slick plays over there tonight. I don't know if there's any better position players that were traded. What do you think?
I don't think so either. So far, Jazz Chisholm has very obviously been the best acquisition of the trade deadline. I mean, you can't ask for better from this guy. He's got a ton of swag, ton of grit. Guy has fun on the field. What's not to like about him so far?
I like him already.
2 main players that the Yankees picked up today were Mark Leiter Jr., sinker splitter specialist who has great swing and miss numbers. We saw him tonight. We'll talk a little bit more about that. They also got Enyel de los Santos. I hope I'm saying that right. Enyel. I guess we'll find out soon, from the Padres. My friend called him De Los Meatballs. He's a Padres fan, giving up 11 home runs in 40 innings, so that's fun. They also traded Caleb Ferguson to the Astros, which I can only imagine is an act of sabotage, some kind of 4D chess there. They get back a minor league arm named Kelly Austin and some international bonus pool money. Aiden, what do the analytics say about Mark Leiter and Enyel de los Santos?
Well, like what you mentioned before, Mark Leiter is a sinker splitter guy who he generates a lot of whiffs, a lot of soft contact, and a lot of ground balls. That's like the perfect profile in a relief pitcher, if you ask me. Don't let that 4.21 ERA fool you. He's gotten rather unlucky this year, and we can see that with his 2.61 expected ERA. And if you don't believe the expected stats and StatCast, there is fielding independent pitching, other known as FIP, that calculates how a pitcher prevents runs independent of his defense. He has a 2.11 FIP, which is considered elite. That's one of the best FIPs in baseball. He's 6th among relief pitchers in FIP. He has a 196 opponent batting average, 85th percentile in average exit velocity allowed, 98th percentile in both whiff and K rates, and 84th percentile in ground ball rate. The guy's got a below average walk rate, but he's a really good get for this Yankees bullpen. He's what they need. You still want that ground ball guy, but what they needed was swing and miss. That's what this team has lacked.
Yeah.
That's what Clay Holmes has been lacking a little bit. So I would expect this team I expect to see Leiter in high leverage spots. You saw him in a high leverage spot. 5 minutes
good.
after he got off the plane.
He's great.
I mean, his splitter's very effective, has a 63% whiff rate on it, and he used that sinker and curveball to generate ground balls. The guy profile as well. He's going to be really good.
So what about De Los Santos? We didn't see him. I see that you noted he's got a 4.46 ERA. What do you think of the home run balls?
I mean, yeah. So De Los Santos, he is really just a swing and miss guy. He's a guy that goes up there and just tries to miss bats, and other than that, he hasn't been great. His fastball is a bit of a problem. It gets shelled, but that 32.5% whiff rate and that 28.2% K rate are pretty encouraging. This is a project pitcher for the Yankees. I think they probably see something that they can tap into, and it is worth noting that he did have 2 solid seasons the past 2 years. So I think the Yankees are really trying to tap into something there with him.
Yeah, I'm looking at your notes. You think he's a project arm. It seems like the Yankees do bring in these guys like Michael Tonkin, who we saw tonight, Luke Weaver, who we saw tonight, and maybe make them focus on throwing one of their better pitches or 2 of their better pitches, and sometimes cast aside some of the garbage. And let's just hope that he's one of these guys who's given up home runs on maybe like hanging sliders or something, and they're like, well, let's not throw that pitch, or let's not throw it to certain hitters, right? So, I'm going to choose to trust the Yankees on this, because they've at least provided a track record of having some success with relief pitchers. I'm not going to say that I'm not disappointed they didn't do more and get like a lockdown closer, but there wasn't really a lot of those guys available. We did see one guy traded today that we had talked about. Let's talk about what could have been. There were really 2 main targets. It was Tanner Scott and there was Jack Flaherty. Scott ended up with the San Diego Padres, and Jack Flaherty ended up with the Dodgers. There was just a report 2 minutes ago. I didn't have time to put it in the notes, but Ken Rosenthal said that the Yankees backed out on Jack Flaherty at the last minute because he had some injury concerns. So apparently they reviewed his medicals, and there was something they didn't like, and so they backed out. But former Yankee prospect Trey Sweeney was part of the deal anyway, went back to the Tigers in that deal. Interesting that he's been traded away by both the Dodgers and the Yankees. It makes you wonder, like, if there's something that these teams see that's wrong with him. You know, that's interesting. So break down the prospects going back in these deals and, you know, what it would have basically, what it would have cost the Yankees in, analogous ways, you know?
Right, yeah. So in the Tanner Scott deal, I think Brett Ho-Ring also went there. I might be botching his name.
Ho-Ring.
So in that deal, the Marlins got Robbie Snelling. He's the Padres' number 2 prospect, 44th in the MLB. He's a left-handed starting pitcher. He's going to be very, very good. Adam Mazur, their 4th prospect. Graham Pauley, their 5th prospect. And Jay Bashirs, their 24th prospect. So that's a haul of prospects that the Marlins got in return. The Yankees would have had to give up a haul like that. I'd imagine they probably would have just gone for Tanner Scott instead of, the second pitcher too. But we're looking like at giving up Spencer Jones there along with Chase Hampton and maybe one other prospect like Yorbit Vivas or Will Warren. That's a big haul. And while the Yankees could have offered those prospects, I'm not sure that would have gotten the deal done because, it's hard to compare prospects between organizations and what would have gotten what deal done. But I'd imagine the Marlins would have stuck with that deal from the Padres because the Padres have a better system. And then if you look at the Flaherty return too, Theron Lirzano, LA's 8th best prospect, and Trey Sweeney, of course, the Dodgers' 22nd prospect, that would have been something like Roderick Arias and Ben Rice, I think. But I still think that's probably a better package just because those 2 players are more MLB ready and LA always has a good system. But, like you just said, Flaherty had an issue with the medicals. I'm glad the Yankees did their diligence there. You kind of want them to take a risk, but you don't know. They took that risk with Frankie Montas 2 years ago, and we saw how that went.
And Efros, Efros got hurt right away. He was actually leading the league in innings pitched by relievers that year. And I remember thinking, well, he is a sidearmer, so maybe it won't affect him that much. But then he went down with a Tommy John. He's had multiple surgeries, and I've kind of heard that he's maybe not impressing the Yankees too much. Like maybe he's lost something. That's why they optioned him to AAA instead of putting him back in the bullpen. I thought maybe the Yankees would have traded him today, possibly, for some teams that were looking for an arm, but that didn't work out.
Back, track, wall, see ya.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps other fans find the channel. NYY Recaps is also available on all your favorite podcast platforms, and we'll see you next time.